Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to do is talk about sort of what I call finding hidden gems. And there are some that are more obvious than others, so let's get started and see what we can find. And some of these are some very, very good buys. The first one is Aeromasque dressage. And the lesson here, if there is one, is don't judge a book by its cover. Now, when this one first came out around in the early 2000s, maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere in that neighborhood, Hermes had just bought 25% of Vaucher. But most people would see Hermes and they'd think, oh, that's a fashion brand. Well, it's not. All right. It wasn't when the Hermes dressage came out either, but most collectors and other people looking for a luxury watch would look elsewhere. The result is that there are a number of these that are available at very good prices. I saw a range from about $5,500 to $2,500. Someone for sale on eBay for $2,500. They have the H1837 movement. It's a good movement. I mean, it's a Vaucher movement, and Vaucher makes good movements. And I think one of the lessons here is that to some extent, I think it's important to judge a watch by its manufactured movements, but if the movement is good enough, it's better than most so-called in-house movements could be. That's a good watch. And since Vaucher has some of the finest movements around, any watch that uses those is by definition has a good movement. Now, this isn't to say that in-house movements are inferior, because that's not true. The big problem, I think, with in-house movements versus non-in-house movements was that collectors and other people figure they were getting taken advantage of, because some companies would put in very inexpensive movements that they could get for very little money but yet charge a lot of money. So the question isn't whether it's in-house or not, but whether it's a quality movement. And Hermes and some of these other watches we're going to look at have some very good movements in them. Now, this next watch is one that I'll call semi-unpopular. There was a watch by Parmigiani called the Persian, and the Persian, just people didn't like it. It had a solid back, had a picture of a boat on it, and people just didn't like it, didn't like the looks of it. On the other hand, the Parmigiani Tondometrograph, that was nice looking chronograph. It had a caliber PF 315 by Michel Parmigiani and manufactured by Vaucher. It was part of this vertical organization that Parmigiani is at. Now here, what I found were some of the other older Parmigianis that people really liked. Like I got one of the older Kalpas, and I also got Hemispheres. Oh, great watches. I got great buys on them. That dried up. That really dried up quickly. People got wise to it and snatched them all up. But this one is one I think you can find some really good deals on. So this is it's worthwhile looking carefully, all right, finding something you really like. And these are quality watches. Now, this next one is a Van Cleef and Arpels, Monsieur Arpels Reveal GMT. Now, it's a dual time watch. One of the more interesting watches that I've seen. You have on the outer ring, you have that's your GMT time in 24 hours. And then you can use the minute hand that'll tell you where it is in terms of the hours. And then you have these two, amount to buy retrogrades, two retrogrades for the date on either side. And at 6 o'clock, you have a power reserve indicator too. And it's really a very interesting watch. Now, the other thing about it is it's got a Jaja Lacoutre caliber 918 in it. So here you have a watch. Now Van Cleef Arpels, here again, this is a very famous jewelry maker, but they also have been making watches. They came out with one in 1949 called the Monsieur Arpels, and I think it had a Piaget movement in it. And they had that for years. And then they started making some other ones, and this one is among my favorite. I think there's also a chronograph model of this same watch. But again, this is something that you can keep an eye out for. You're not going to see everybody says, oh, I want to get one of these. I'm saving up for one of these. This is a different one altogether. Now, this next one is one I've mentioned before. Probably for some of you, you may have mentioned it one too many times. Today, I called the New York Vacheron Constantin boutique. And I asked them, I said, hey, you guys, you got any silver dial? Actually, I asked for white dial, but they call it silver dial overseas. They said, no, we don't have any, but we have a waiting list. In fact, we don't have any overseas. They're all, we sold them all. We don't have any more, but we have waiting lists for, you can get a blue one or a black one or a white one on a waiting list. So I thought, okay. Now, the Quadrille, they dumped the line, or at least the men's line and the ones with the 5100 /1 movement. Now, the reason that I've liked this watch for a long time was back in 2016. I went down and I was all set to get a new overseas. I had my old overseas, and I thought, well, I'll trade it in and get a new one. Well, they wouldn't trade it in, and I don't know. I think they were a little too not the way I like to deal, and so. But after trying on the new what I call 6-horn overseas, I tried on one of these, and I loved it. In fact, I liked it better than the overseas, the Quadrille. And they, like I said, they got the same movement. They have the only difference in the overseas in this one is that this one has a tungsten rotor rather than a gold one. Okay, that it would be nice to have. Finding these is getting harder and harder, I found out when I went looking for one. Now, you can still find some new at secondary markets, and the MSRP was $14,800, and you can get them for that, I think. But again, on a secondary market, or I found one for $12,628. Big reduction for a fantastic watch. So anyway, that's another thing. You find the same movement in a much more expensive watch. Overseas, around $20,000. Scalpers are selling them for $25,000 now, and here's one for $12,000. So, and I ought to keep my big mouth shut about this watch and go out and get one before they're all gone. Now, the final watch is one that is very unusual. You're not going to have a bunch of people running down to get one of these. This is another one of the Aeromasque dressage line of watches, except what makes this one interesting, it's called the Aeromasque, something like that. I apologize for my French, but I am aware of it. What this one does is that looks like it has a single hand, and the hand just keeps the minutes. And as long as you're okay with that, that's fine. But then you push a button, and the hour hand pops out from underneath the minute hand and goes to the time. You can see that sort of down below. I have a little thing down there. You can see it. Now, this one it's also a GMT. The GMT, if you don't push the button, just says GMT. But when you push the button, not only does the hour hand pop out, but the correct GMT time pops out too. Yeah, I mean, I say, well, that's who would want to watch like that? It's just sort of a fun watch, and that's one thing I like about Aeromasque. They have a lot of fun watches for guys like that. And they have movements. There's a couple of the other ones they have with that do tricks, I'll say, are by Agenor. So now this one is the H1925. It's got hidden complications, 45 hours. Now this is running right around between $15,000 and $17,000. Not easy to find, but it's the kind of watch that might be a lot of fun for some people, and certainly worth it. At least, in a strange way, I suppose. Okay, well, listen, those are some ideas that I had. And right now, when the supply of luxury watches seems to be tied up, I'd like to hear what you think, some ideas you have, and any other of these hidden gems you might know about. Till next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.